Good morning. Welcome to the March 6, 2025 Parking Traffic Safety Committee meeting. Would you please call the roll?
Sure. Mary Lou McKelman,
Here.
Jane Mitchell-Pate,
Here.
Mark Siracusa,
Here.
Erica Wygonick,
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney, here. Fire Chief Bill McQuillan, here. Public Works Director Peter Rice,
Here.
Planning Department Representative Stephanie Casella,
Here.
Dave Allen absent, and Chairman Andrew Bagley.
Here.
Sorry, I didn't notice.
Could we have the financial report, please?
Move to accept the.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Aye for in favor. Public comment. So please just come up, state your name and address into the microphone, and then talk about whatever issue you'd like to talk about, if there is any public comment.
Good morning, committee. Tyler Garzo, 62 McKinley. Driving, the industry that you folks are partially responsible for regulating, causes over 60% of Portsmouth's greenhouse gas emissions. Not all of New Hampshire seems to know this. 20% of the population does not drive, and over 10% of the capital improvement plan is car specific. I urge you, please do everything you can to make driving less of a cakewalk so that people have a reason to get out of their cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. All right. And there's nobody. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know, am I stating my case with a driveway? Do I can
No.
I say that? This
No,
is different.
No,
right?
do it now.
Yeah, do it now. Yeah.
This is your chance.
All right. Hi, committee. My name is Patrick Lavoie. I live at 217 Austin Street, but I own the unit 295 Maplewood Ave for my barber shop, and I'm pleading my case to try and get a driveway for the barber shop next to the barber shop. It's closer to Maplewood Ave, but it's actually off of Marcy Street or Jackson Hill, and that's what I'm here for. So I think that's all I got to do. Is that
Yep,
all I got to do?
perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody on Zoom?
Nope.
All right, with that, I'll close the public comment. No presentations, no new business, old business. Section A, 293 Maplewood Avenue, driveway permit request by resident. Sample motion to move to place on file. We can get a motion on the floor and then
Yeah. So moved. Second.
Perhaps we'll go to Eric Eby first on this, if you have a.
Yeah, I'm just bring it up on the screen too so we can see it. So the request is to have this is to orient you. This is Maplewood Ave here along the bottom of the screen, Jackson Hill on the side. This is the site here where the barber shop is in this building. The requested location for a driveway is in this area here, which is hatched in. Portion of it would be on the applicant's property, and a portion is on what is currently owned by Eversource, I believe it is. So the request is to put a driveway in this area. It would be a little shorter, I think 15 feet is the length here at this end, and longer at this end to get a car in off the street here. Currently, there's no parking here to corner on the street from about here, 20 feet out, and that's where the parking is on the street in about this area. So the request is to put a driveway in this spot here. And this is to give the applicant, notice whether or not this is even feasible so that he can proceed to acquire the land needed to put the driveway in.
Okay, and as I understand it, because it doesn't meet the intersection requirements, it would have to come to this committee.
Yes,
Otherwise, it'd be
yes.
similar,
He had
rejected.
applied for a driveway permit, but because it's less than 50 feet from the intersection, then we can't issue a driveway permit without this committee's approval.
And I think most of us were at the site walk a couple days ago to see the.
One other item that deviates from standard parking driveways is that this is a second driveway for the lot. Is that correct?
I think so. There is parking in back of the building for the units, which is back in this area. And I believe, I'm not sure, I don't know if Stephanie is familiar with it or not, but whether or not what the driveway requirements are.
Yeah, so zoning allows for one driveway per lot, so this would require a variance on top of site plan review and a lot line adjustment if the land is acquired. So there are multiple steps zoning-wise after. It would go through, the safety review for PTS, but that can be done separately. But that is something that should be considered since land is being considered for purchase.
Erica?
Stephanie, can you tell us, order of events? Would the applicant need to get the driveway permit before doing the variance request?
Driveway permit would come last. So we can, PTS can look at it, give their recommendation or review comments, and then it would go to Board of Adjustment for a variance, and then site plan, lot line adjustment at the planning board, and then Peter Britz, the planning director, is the official sign-off on driveway permits.
So, is it most appropriate for us to review this now or after that process?
Now.
Okay.
The challenge is the property owner doesn't want to buy the
Yeah,
property
totally.
unless he knows he can get it. So that's the rub.
Mary Lou?
So if we deny this, can he go forward with his request, or is this the first step?
Technically, yes, but it probably wouldn't make much sense because the reason to buy the property is to put in a driveway. And
Okay.
probably the zoning
Okay,
board's
so
not going
what
to give a
we
variance if
discussed
we
today
deny it.
is pretty significant
Yes,
for the whole process.
it's the first step in the process if we
Right.
say yes.
Right, right.
Erica?
I mean, best practice is obviously to keep driveways pretty well separated from intersections. This is a location that I have, I would say, a pretty rare willingness to at least consider violating that, because Jackson Hill Street is appears to be a very low volume road, and there's already curb cuts coming out of our ears on that road. I think but it's not great, right? I do think, I guess sometimes the zoning rules can feel very confining, but sometimes they force you to figure out a different solution, and oftentimes that ends up being, that was one of the first lessons I learned when I started working, is someone I worked with was trying to get something changed in his house, and he got rejected, and he was really mad, and then he paused, and he reworked the plan, and then his family was thrilled with the new plan, which did get approved. And I guess I wonder if there's just a creative solution that would avoid this problem. I don't know.
I think we should just worry about
I mean,
the safety
right,
issue.
I know.
and let
I'm
ZBA
just, this is me thinking out loud.
Yeah. Mark?
Eric, what's your engineering opinion on this?
I think it's a difficult spot for a driveway just because trying to get into it, if you're driving into Jackson Hill Street from Maplewood, you're not going to be able to turn right into this driveway because of the angle. So you're either going to then back in or you're going to have to do a three-point turn to turn around and get into the driveway. And if you back into it, coming out of it, you're going to be looking almost behind you to see if anybody's coming when you pull out. And it's going to be difficult to make a left turn out of it to get.
Does it have any impact on traffic flow?
Traffic on Jackson Hill is very light, so I'm not concerned about that issue, except for, maybe someone coming around the corner on Maplewood, but they'd be going so slow, taking the right turn from Maplewood onto Jackson Hill. Left turns in would be a higher speed likely, or coming across from Dennett Street. But again, there's not a lot of traffic on Jackson Hill, so I'm not too concerned about that.
Is this something that the city can study?
What do you want studied?
Well, we had the site visit.
Okay, that's the study, okay.
Are there any, Mary Lou?
So I was just going to say, if a semicircle was put there so that you enter and exit at different spots, it means two driveways.
There's not enough room for that.
Yeah, if you were to come out of,
What?
There's a tree on the property, too.
It's not big enough. to
That's
do
not
that.
big enough to do that.
no, I mean, maybe you'd have a pass-through, like come out on Maplewood, but
Yeah, which is not a safe corner.
no.
Any other discussion? I mean, my thoughts on this is, I mean, this is just outside the downtown parking district. As we saw at the end of this very short street, there's a little parking lot next to the water. By and large, most of our downtown doesn't follow zoning rules that were put in place after it was built, and most of the driveways are problematic. We're always trying to reduce the parking strain we have in the downtown. As mentioned, a number of downtown workers will park at that water spot and then walk down. And, I don't see this as a particularly challenging one compared to many of the other driveways that we have in town. It's not like on a blind curve or at the top of a hill. So I would be inclined to support it. But those are my thoughts. Support the driveway, sorry, not support the motion to place on file.
Yeah, the other one concern I had, excuse me, was that the length of the driveway. If you have a longer vehicle, say a truck or something, it's going to be hanging out of that driveway probably into the street. And it's not really creating any extra spaces because you're eliminating the on-street space to put it off-street. So I don't see it, it's a loss of on-street parking, but a gain of the driveway.
Oh, sorry. Stephanie.
Okay, Eric, do you know what the proposed width of the driveway is?
I know there was a sketch, but it's not included here. I think it was 12 feet wide or 15.
Okay.
The applicant might know that.
Okay.
Mary Lou?
Eliminating one parking space?
Yes.
I mean, I think there's pros and cons to that because there's a driveway directly
Public
across the
parking
street
space?
where the 105 is, or
Yeah.
actually to the left of the 105. So when those people pull out, if there's a car parked on the street there, that makes it narrow right before the intersection. Here you're taking the car and you're pulling it off the street. So I think I don't know that neither one is ideal.
Right.
So is there one that's better than the other? I would say that's
Is that,
subjective.
I'm sorry,
Mark?
is that public spot for parking, is that highly used?
I think it's used mostly by the applicant or his customers right now.
Yep.
And this isn't a line street, so the spots are wherever, so to speak, you can fit your car. It's not delineated by markings like it is in some parts of town. Erica?
I'm still sorry. I'm thinking out loud, so forgive my not linear comments here. But I guess thinking about the idea of getting in and out of the driveway, a parallel spot on the road there is going to have the same sort of problems. They can pull in pretty easily, but then they're going to have to do some sort of turning around to get back out.
Well, it is a loop street. You can go up and take a left, another left, and then come out onto Jackson Hill does go around the block.
So someone parking in the driveway could pull past, back in, and then they could pull out and
Yeah.
do that same U pattern. It's just a question of looking over their shoulder to.
Seems we're at a... Jane?
How far is the entrance of the driveway from the intersection?
Let's see. Just looking at these measurements here, I'm trying to guess.
I think it's 28.
Is that the 28?
28 feet, I think, is this entire length here. So I'm saying it's
Oh.
probably 10 to 15 feet. I'm looking at this up here is 8.5 feet, that length. So, yeah, probably around 15 feet.
I mean, the biggest concern I would have about it being close to the intersection would be people coming from the right or coming out of town and taking that right-hand turn. And because of the angle of the road, people aren't going to be whipping around that.
Yeah.
So I think that reduces the potential for that conflict because you just physically can't take that turn fast because it's 270 degrees or whatever that angle is. Mark?
Director of Public Works, Peter, what's your overall suggestion on this?
Avoid making comments.
Well, we're not,
I mean,
we're not experts. Erica is. but-
in terms of design, it would be, a no-go. And, you wouldn't, as an engineer, we wouldn't do it this way. However, as Erica pointed out, it's a low-volume street. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's a dead end, really, but not really. You can loop around, but
I didn't even know that.
yeah, rarely people loop around because it's a tough exit out of the next street. I would, if I was going to be doing it, I would look at probably reorienting the curb line a little bit, maybe bulging it a little bit to protect, to get a little bit more length. So it's not like Eric said, if a larger vehicle in there, it's going to be sticking out into the public right of way. The property owner indicated that your clients may be parking at the end.
If I was in the driveway, they could park in front of me, especially as all the parking out there is getting plugged up by other people working in town and parking in the free spots.
Right, and dimensionally, I don't see that working well because you're not going to be 6 inches or, really tight against a vehicle that's in the parking space. So they're going to be 1.5 feet out, which pushes you that much farther out into the street. So there's a number of things that make it challenging. So, my preference is to not have to opine on it.
Erica?
Now that you've said all that.
Now that I've said all that.
I want this to work. I think it's a really, I want it to work because I feel like it is trying really hard to make something work. It's thinking through all the other things that need to happen. I guess I wonder if it's, I don't know. We could say fine, but then there's like 14 other steps to go through. I'm being dramatic. 3 other steps, but they're not simple steps that I'm not sure. I don't know if they would get approved, but I think are equally challenging as my expectation. I don't know if it's, I don't want to drag, I guess I'm saying I don't want to drag something out. We could kick it down the can and see what these other boards think.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of incentive for him to go to these other boards if there's a definition.
And I do think,
He'll have to
our
revisit.
committee is here largely for issues that don't fall within the standard. So I think Director Rice is correct. If you look at this, it's easy to say no to it, but it does have a number of mitigating standards. So it's our job as a committee to say, okay, does that number of mitigating standards
Can you pull up the
override
left?
the standard engineering doctrine?
And can I just,
Stephanie?
speaking to those other steps, the BOA has their specific criteria. Site plan review has, their specific requirements, as does subdivision. So the safety aspect is really evaluated here.
Right.
And they're going to be looking to the decision of this board
For that
to ensure
guidance.
that, the safety aspect is taken care of before they approve.
So, how unsafe is it?
You can get, okay, there we go. So this is a great example. There's a vehicle right there right now.
Okay, so go up there.
So essentially where those bushes are would be the parking spot. And the intention is for the tree to remain. Mark?
Now I'm going to go back to Eric and ask a safety issue. A scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the least safe. What's your opinion?
I'd say it's a 3.5.
Good answer.
Because I feel, that it's short. The vehicle will be sticking out here into the right of way, into the public street, which I don't like that. And I don't like the fact someone's, if coming down and wants to make a left, they may be going fairly fast to beat an oncoming car coming out of town. And if someone's pulling out at that point or sticking out, it's not a great geometric setup here for a driveway.
So using this as an example, if that blue car was parked where the bushes are, is that safer or less safe?
If it was parked where the bushes are, I would say it would be, if it was totally off the street, I would say it would be more safe.
Okay.
If there was a way to make sure that the car never stuck out of the parking space, I would say it would be a little safer, just because you wouldn't have any cars there.
That's
But
why I
you-
was thinking if you could adjust the geometry of the road, but it's already a pretty narrow section of roadway.
Yeah.
And it's an exit. You're right at the stop sign. So if you narrowed it down to one lane there, it would make it difficult for somebody to turn in if a vehicle is trying to pull out.
Jane?
But just to confirm, the driveway that's proposed is not going to be any closer to the intersection than where that car is parked now, and where cars could park now?
I,
Yeah.
Yeah, the
The
cars,
sign
I
is
would
right
say,
here.
parked a little bit further back than the entrance to the driveway would be.
yeah, I think the driveway would be
Not a
closer.
lot, but a little bit.
Yeah, the driveway would be closer than the sign is now. To fit a car in here and still have a walkway, I think, between the building and the car.
And I think the tree would end up going. I don't think you'd be able to save it because it just,
I had a mason come out and he said that you could put a cuff around it, and there was 10.5 feet, and the car's 9 feet wide, or
Okay.
7 feet wide. So it's 10.5 feet from the
say
cuff.
you'd put a grate over it and
Yeah.
protect the roots.
Yep.
Looks like there's an old stanch, anchor for a guidepost or guy wire off. It's dropped right down, right
Yeah, right there.
there. That looks like it used to be a telephone or a
Oh, this-
utility pole anchor.
I'm leaning towards safety and no, but it's just too bad that realistically that it starts here and we have to make the decision. I'd love to push it forward to Board of Adjustment, go through the process, but I'm leaning more towards safety.
You don't want to make the opinion either.
I mean,
I want to say yes, I want to say no, but I'm leaning more towards no because of that obstacle. Oh, I call it an obstacle, but
you know, looking at
for the
this
applicant.
and where the car's parked, I think the safety is 50-50. I mean, if it's, the car parked on the road can be more dangerous than the car parked in the driveway, or vice versa. And I'd rather accommodate the driveway than not accommodate the driveway. So I would lean towards allowing
Right,
it.
but one of the reasons you wanted to do this was to allow a car to park at the, like
That's
it's
like
parking
a-
now
that's a
while
second-
you're in the parking
That's a
lot.
secondary thing. I honestly just want to get my car off the road. You know, it was kind of brainstorming ideas as things do get busy down there, especially when the waterfront project goes off. There's going to be a lot more people trying to find free parking in Portsmouth to make it over.
That's right.
Over the waterway there. And, you know, I see it every day. I'm in the barber shop at 8 o'clock in the morning and people are just walking by because they park out there and walk into town.
Yep.
And I've come to my spot where that's my car there. I park there every morning, and some days I show up and someone's in my spot, you know? And it's not my spot, it's a town
Yeah.
street parking, but it does make it difficult for myself to get to my business. And so that was why I started this whole process, was to alleviate that, to, you know, keep my variables low.
Yeah. Now, these two spots are for the other tenants in the building, right? Or the-
Correct. Each unit has a parking spot. And I think like when they originally subdivided this lot, like I think the lady was putting, it's 7 feet 9 inches that my unit owns. And that's where those bushes are. And that is deeded to my unit. It's just not wide enough to put a driveway in. And that's when I started talking with Eversource, which has been months that I've been working with them. And then they finally came to me, instead of an easement, they gave me an option to buy the whole unit, the whole piece of land on the corner there.
And I think, I mean, if you go down the street, Eric, the house next door, which is quite an old house, it looks like, has a driveway on either side of it. One on Maplewood and one even closer to this intersection on Jackson.
Going this way?
Yeah, so there's a driveway to the right of this house, which I don't know if it goes to this house, but it looks like it might. And then if you go down Jackson, oops, back one.
This one, or?
No, the one that we're talking about. You can see this driveway is much closer to the intersection. And as far as I know, we've never had an issue that's come before this meeting about that driveway.
No.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point?
Yeah.
It's important to understand that the dimensions of a standard parking space perpendicular is 20 feet long, and the parallel spaces on the street are 22. So if you have 21 and a half feet, and what's essentially a perpendicular space, And a vehicle the size that he's showing there, I don't see it hanging out into the street. It would be a concern if it were 18 or 19 feet. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that that's a standard dimension, or it falls between standard dimensions of perpendicular and parallel. And a normal vehicle is expected to be able to park, or even a Tahoe is expected to be able to park inside that 22 on a parallel space on regular city street like we looked at on Bow. So something to be said for, whether or not he will actually hang out of that intersection or not.
But that's just the middle of the parking, of the driveway?
I think it's 21.5 feet on this side, but then on this side, it's only about 15 feet.
Okay. I thought that
It's
the line.
29 on the building and then 21 in the middle of the spot.
Okay.
And it's about 16 on that side there. And my Subaru Forester is, I think, 14 feet 7 inches.
So parking tied to the building, you've got the room.
Yeah, if you have a smaller car, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to make that point.
So I would, at some point, I guess we have to make a decision. I appreciate that, Director Fletcher. I would support it. So I would vote against placing on file. I don't know if there's enough support for that, but if somebody wanted to make a motion.
So for a point of order, right, as the motion that's on the floor now, this is to place the request on file and take no action.
Right, which is to essentially deny it.
Correct.
Mark?
I'm going to lean towards Eric's 3.5 versus the chair's 2.5 when it comes to safety.
So is there a
So
second?
Well, we
This is
have
a
to
vote to
place on
put it on file?
We're just wondering if there's another motion.
No means file.
If you're against the driveway, then you don't need to make a motion. If you think the driveway is worthwhile, then a new motion would be needed.
Okay, so I make a motion that we approve with this committee the placement of a driveway at that location as long as there are so many steps for the applicant to go through before this is a final deal.
And is there a second?
Can I shorten that?
Yeah, I don't think we need the extra steps because that's automatically
You get the
assumed.
gist.
Yes. Because we're just the first step in the,
I'll second that motion.
okay. So I guess we have an amendment to the original motion, which was to place on file, which is to approve the driveway. Is there any more discussion?
I'd like a friendly amendment to that motion to replace the tree if it determined that it's damaged, and to plant shrubs on the corner. So you're gonna end up putting a fence around it. Slide some vegetation into this corner.
Bad idea.
Bad idea. Not tall.
Keep it low,
Smaller.
low.
The goal is to make it look like, instead of one huge intersection. My concern is that you're coming down the end of Dennett, all of a sudden you see a car, and you don't necessarily see a black fence. It's going to look like a big wide open area. I would rather have visual cue saying you're coming into an intersection, there's stuff in front of you, and it makes it clearer. It makes it, and the car doesn't look like it's sticking right on the edge of the roadway. And I'm not talking about high sedge. I'm talking about something comparable. Something you can look over.
I mean, I think the tree is perfect because you can see under it. I really worry about a shrub that it's going to grow up and block sight lines, which are now going to be more important.
I mean, there's the big telephone pole, and there's, I think, a street sign
And you have
right about where the tree is.
You have quite a bit of sight distance right there. You get the whole sidewalk.
I tend to agree with Erica in that because we found that a problem at West End Yards, that the shrubbery.
Yes, on Kate Street.
Yep.
And I think, to your point, Peter, or to your concern, the pedestrian crossing sign and the telephone pole kind of help accommodate that, this patio is not part of the street, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, it was a friendly amendment. If it's not supported, that's not supported. I disagree. I think the visual cue outweighs the I don't think the visual impact, I don't think the sight distance impact is significant.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Would the parking be reserved for the owner, or would it be open to the public customers?
No, it's private property, so it would be whoever owned the property. It could be customers, I mean, but it would be at the discretion of the property owner.
It may be challenging dimensionally, looking at the tax maps. It shows the property line in from the roadway. I can't, it's hard to say off of this.
Yeah, and those aren't exact, but like my front steps
They're not
are
exact, but the
on
question is if
city
BOA's
property.
going to look at it.
Right,
And
they'll make that.
they're going to say, is that city property, or is that Eversource property, or is that, what are we granting? Are we granting a parking, dimensionally it shows 21 feet, but is it really 17 feet?
Yeah, but I think we should focus just to the safety aspect.
Well, I don't disagree, but my point is,
The safety aspect is influenced by this.
you're going to need to answer that question. Where's the property line? Even with Eversource, if you take Eversource's, where's that property line along the edge of the road?
All right, so we have a second motion, which is to allow the driveway, provided it passes muster at the other boards. I think we should probably do a roll call vote.
Are we voting on the new amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Or the new
Oh.
motion?
No, I didn't get a second on my amendment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no one seconded your
No one seconded
amendment,
it?
sorry.
She's sorry. She's
That,
sorry.
that could be something you could stipulate at, what's the-
I'm not involved in the other committees. So I would make another friendly amendment, making sure a tree is planted.
Can I suggest, I was thinking, because I've been talking with Peter Happney, the blacksmith in town, and we were talking about doing a wrought iron fence around that unit. And I, in my mind, had thought about wisteria, because it's gonna be a wrought iron fence and it's gonna be with masonry and granite posts and stuff like that. It's gonna be strong enough to hold a wisteria vine. And that stuff clings to things and has beautiful purple flowers. And so I don't know if that's what you guys are looking for as far as distinguishing the boundaries and stuff.
I'd be fine with that, but I know Erica's going to be like, well, that does the same thing as a hedge.
I love wisteria. I am not a landscape architect or have any expertise in that area, nor do I feel like it's my purview to be commenting on your landscaping, other than to say it is important to protect the sight distance at the intersection, and especially in people's ability to see the driveway. So I don't really care what goes in. I have no desire to add any sort of condition to that other than make sure there's adequate sight distance. I mean, make it pretty, enjoy your space, make sure we're not causing a problem. I feel like we have
Fair enough. We can
pretty
come back later.
consistently
Yeah, we
in the
can come back
city
later.
a problem where people plant things on private property that are causing overhang on the sidewalk or sight distance issues. That tends to be more of an issue than a lack of beauty.
And I understand correctly, this goes to TAC or does not go to TAC?
It would go to TAC for subdivision.
Okay,
So
and
lot line adjustment.
Eric, are you on TAC? Yes. So I feel like what's been said here today about landscaping, and perhaps we could look into the wisteria idea a little bit more to make sure that would be
Yeah.
a reasonable, we don't want something that's going to grow huge, and probably a rhododendron would be a terrible idea.
Because you're concerned about sight since at the street intersection as well as the driveway intersection.
Yeah. It may not be an issue. I mean, if you went out there with the sight wheel, it might be fine, but I don't know that, and I would be worried about that. So I don't want to dictate what should happen without that information.
Okay, so perhaps your friendly amendment might be with TAC to evaluate the landscaping?
That's fine.
Probably a little easier to write down than whatever.
Are we
it was that you
following
had
this?
first
Yeah,
proposed.
can we drop my friendly amendment? It's not needed.
Okay. All right, I think we should do a roll call on this one then.
What are we voting on?
This would be to approve or recommend approval of a driveway at this location. Jane?
Do we need to have an amendment to the motion to include something that would require some sort of like sightline survey as a part of the next steps?
No, I think they'll handle that at TAC or Planning Board. I think we've
Well, moving forward with other boards and commissions, I think it's our responsibility to determine safety. So,
TAC will go through that.
okay. I thought we were.
We do, but TAC does very similar things. Eric is on TAC. We have other
Okay.
design
All
professionals on
right.
TAC, so it'll
Because
cover.
Eric's on TAC.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm on TAC as
Then,
well,
yeah.
so
Okay.
I'll remember it.
Okay. All right. Yes, move it forward. Here's my vote.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the driveway, and if we could have a roll call.
Sure. If you could just give me a yes or no, that would be great. Mary Lou McKellen?
Yes.
Jane Mitchell-Pete?
Yes.
Mark Siracusa?
Yes.
Erica Lagonic?
I don't know. I'll say yes.
Deputy Chief Maloney?
Yes.
Chief McMillan?
No.
Director Rice?
I'll say no for you, Erica.
Stephanie Casella?
After he knows the vote.
Yes.
And Chairman Bagley?
Yes.
The yeses have it.
Can you give a
One of our
number?
hardest votes in all the years that I've been on this committee.
Seven
No,
yeses, two noes.
we had one
And
that
now,
was
so
closer.
the motion, so that was the amendment to the motion, which I probably should have done different, because the motion that's still on the floor is to place on file. And I guess the way we.
I
I
will
think it's
with,
superseded
It's
by,
superseded
it's
by the-
superseded by
Okay.
that.
or I'll withdraw my motion. I don't,
No, okay,
Okay,
yeah.
I don't know.
We'll rescind the original
whatever
motion for
needs to
discussion.
happen. I'm
I think
okay
the
with.
the intent is clear, even if the Robert's Rules of Order is.
Best wishes moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. B, Bow Street, request to remove parking space to allow for monument for Royal Governor Benny Wentworth tomb by Portsmouth Historical Society. Sample motion is moved to place item on file.
So moved.
So, second.
And we had a site walk here as well. The brought up by Director Fletcher, the parking is there. This is there's a lot of restaurants, a lot of businesses, a lot of offices in this area, and there's very, very limited parking. So, in my opinion, it's not a revenue question. It's a parking utilization
Access.
question.
Yeah.
There is perhaps an action item, which is it looks like the access to the tombs is blocked, and that could also be a parking spot. So we might be able to recover a parking spot from this if we reached out to the church to see if they need emergency access or if they only need access once in a great while. And we could probably accommodate something that would allow us to increase parking there. If that were to happen, it is possible, in my opinion, that we could do a parking spot, 2 parking spots forward, a small gap, and then not lose any parking and have a small gap where the tomb is. But we don't know that information yet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I appreciate the sentiment of trying to expose and highlight a historic area. However, it's a private entity that is bringing this forward as a for-profit activity, and I think there's ways to solve this. If that person would like a clear spot there, they can purchase a meter bag and place it on there and have it clear for that day, and pay for the value that they feel is associated with these tours. So I'm not supportive of doing something for a for-profit entity. Just this was driven from another direction, whether it was council or whether it was something else. I would be more receptive, but as Director Fletcher has pointed out, it's a demand issue. We don't have a lot of inventory in the area, and it's full all the time. So,
Erica?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things going on, but ultimately, I don't think it makes sense to get rid of a parking space that is highly utilized for something that it sounds like happens 2, maybe 3 times a month for 6 months of the year and affects maybe half an hour, probably 15 minutes, and maybe even less than that in those instances. So we're talking about losing a parking space 365 days a year for something that's used maybe 10 hours a year. We have a mechanism if someone wants a short-term access to a spot that makes a lot more sense than having the entire neighborhood lose access to a parking spot all the time when it's not, they wouldn't use it all the time.
Agreed.
If we wanted to make a park there or something, that's totally different. But it's also part of our city is that we have history everywhere, and it's just everywhere. We celebrate it with parks and monuments in a lot of places, and some places it's just there, and you kind of wouldn't notice if you didn't notice, and I think that's part of the charm. But that doesn't matter. I think what matters is this idea that we have a lot of demand there, and the trade-off of losing a space 365 days compared to something that's needed for less than 10 hours a year doesn't, to me, make sense.
Mark?
I have two questions. The first one would be going back to the safety. I'm envisioning a group of people standing on the side of the road with their backs.
Well, hang on, before we go forward, is there anybody that's going to support removal of the parking space? I don't know if we need to have a big discussion, because I don't think
No.
there's, it's just, to Erica's points, it doesn't make sense to remove highly utilized parking for what ends up being a few minutes a year for the entirety of the year.
Agree. No. Don't remove it. Keep it.
Jane?
Especially since there is a mechanism to block the space, like if needed, for the tours, like in those instances, and like we have the bagged meters, because there's an alternative mechanism. I don't think we need to remove a parking spot.
Okay. All right. So the motion is to place item on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And police monthly accident report, please,
Sure.
Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the month of January, we had 66 total crashes. 38 of those 66 were considered reportable, and we had one accident involving a vehicle and a pedestrian. That was at the intersection of State and Penn Hollow.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? All right.
Yes. May I ask? State and Penn Hollow, that's where on Click and Fix, there was a comment about the sidewalk. It's not well marked right now because all of that paint is worn off. Is there a way that we can improve that intersection, that crosswalk right now?
There's, well,
Did you see that on?
I didn't see that,
Yeah,
but I
so-
would say, there's a expense associated with painting lines.
Well, I know, and it can't be done
And-
right now anyway.
And it can't be done in the wintertime.
Right.
So I think the Department of Public Works has a very good system for updating the lines, and it's not really our purview to say that they need to spend more money doing
I'm just
it.
commenting on the fact that that was a pedestrian accident there, and that is the spot that was commented on in Click.
Yeah,
Click
the
and Fix.
lines
That's all.
wear
Yeah.
quickly when we start plowing, and we did a lot of plowing this year.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, once the temperatures get to the point, we will go through and redo the lines.
Is that a spot where we can put up a cone or a marker for that
weeble?
crosswalk, or is that too
Well,
narrow?
If I could just say, the
Yeah.
contributing factors on the crash didn't have anything to do with the design of the
Crosswalk?
intersection or the crosswalk. They were in the crosswalk. It was at night, it was dark, it was raining, there was additional glare, so
Okay.
when I looked at it, I didn't see anything as far as improvements to the intersection that we could do that would mitigate that in the
Okay.
future. So I think it was, hopefully a one-off.
Yeah. That is an ongoing
Thank you.
challenge. Our lines come up very quickly.
Oh, sure.
Especially when we
Yeah,
do a lot of
I was
plowing.
just looking at that intersection. It's a busy one coming from the Temple over to Penn Hollow. But it's too narrow for a cone or anything like that. Correct, Peter? Is that what you're saying?
I would have to defer to Eric in terms of,
Yeah, we've looked at that in the past, and because of the turns onto Ben Hollow, it would
Yeah.
get in the way of that. I mean,
Cuts it off.
Yeah, I mean, you could maybe put it on the other side, but there's no crosswalk on the other side.
Yeah.
We were looking at improving the lighting here because we just have this one period light which
Yes.
doesn't illuminate very well. Replacing that with an overhead cobra over the crosswalk to give more light to it.
Good idea.
It was a left-turning vehicle from State onto Penn Hollow,
Uh-huh.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The pedestrians were crossing from in the crosswalk on the right. Yeah.
This one here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ah, I see. Yeah, the lighting would make a difference.
Can we put a light on that pole there with the 3 transformers?
I don't know. We can ask.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chief. And
Sure.
I think more lighting would be advantageous there. I'm guessing Eric has an update on the outdoor dining season?
Yes, we've started receiving applications this week for outdoor dining. It will be opening up on May 1st for dining, and we've gotten about 4 or 5 already. Some of the same players as before.
All right. Miscellaneous. So I actually have one item this month. Last month, we had the Broad Street discussion. One of the items, generally what we found is any traffic calming measures would require CIP-type money. So there's nothing really we can do as a committee as far as bump outs and reconfiguring the road. It was suggested by a committee member that we could potentially turn that road into a dead-end street effectively. And I just wanted to get the input from the 2 chiefs if that would cause issues in that location.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the idea of closing off Broad Street at the end is problematic for us. We do use Broad Street as a response route in and out of Jones Ave. We have a skilled nursing facility up there and an assisted living facility. I don't have the data off the top of my head as to the amount of times we go there in a given year, but it is one of our more frequently visited facilities. Understandably, right, serving that population for 911 ambulance service to transport to the hospital for a variety of medical reasons. And for some of the very reasons that it's a quality of life issue that the residents have on Broad Street with respect to people cutting through, is the same reason that sometimes our crews are using Broad Street to gain access to Jones Ave, be it the traffic on Sagamore, or to avoid trying to get through an intersection, an intersection light. So I think I'm happy to talk more about it and do a deeper dive with respect to the data and to some other ideas that maybe we can toss around. But at first blush, I think it's going to be a challenge for us.
Thank you, Chief. That was my miscellaneous item. It'll probably be on next month's agenda.
I could also add, I'd agree with the chief having not a lot of time to kind of take a deep dive into it, but with respect to traffic management, traffic flow, and emergency operations, from my perspective, it's always better to have more options than less. If it comes down to a down tree, a car accident, anything that may require a police detour, a road detour, or a temporary realignment of traffic to send traffic in one direction or another, it's better from our standpoint to have more options available to reroute traffic than less. Where I'd see, if there was something on the lower end of Broad Street, even if it's a tree across the road or a house fire or something, you can still get out Broad Street on Jones Ave, whereas you may not be able to. And if memory serves, I think we were, Peter might recall it. It might have had something to do with construction on Sagamore Ave, but we actually looked at, and maybe we did in fact put a 5K road race down Broad Street, or there was a road race where we were talking about involving Broad Street. If we didn't actually involve it, we might have had road runners on that. I can't think of a road race that takes Broad Street regularly right now, but again, it was an option. Maybe Sagamore was temporarily under construction, or vice versa, but. Initial first thought on it, having more options is better for us and better for everybody in case of an emergency.
Okay. Thank you for your input. Like I said, we'll probably bring that forward next month to evaluate one more time. Is there any other miscellaneous? Oh, Jane.
I had a question. Are we going to ask about the space behind the church where those doors are, where the X is, to evaluate if that could be a space in general for
Yeah,
parking?
I'll reach out to the church directly and just see if that's, if that's access that they need, and they may have deeded rights to it, or it may be they need the access for emergency. But if we hadn't done the site walk, it wouldn't have occurred to me that there's an X there, and it may or may not need to be there.
Okay.
Mary Lou?
Yeah, without getting into legal issues, I'm wondering if the stop sign at Marston is that still under legal review? Marston and South?
I assume
Stop
so.
sign.
I haven't heard back from legal on that, so I can put it on an action item and report back.
Yeah, just curious to know what the status is.
The legal department is stretched pretty thin at the moment, so this may be not near the
going
top of the pile. All right. Jane?
Are we going to need a site visit for Broad if we're going to talk about that next month?
I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, you're always welcome to go out and look at it independently, but I think it's not a specific ask, so I don't think we need a site visit for that one.
Okay.
With that, Erica?
Move to adjourn?
Get a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.